Amanda Leigh's life seemed perfect on the outside, but when she was found dead at the bottom of her stairs, Erin Moriarty uncovered chilling secrets that begged the question: was it truly an accident, or was it murder? The morning had started like any other in the quiet suburban neighborhood where Amanda Leigh lived. The streets were slick from overnight rain, leaves clinging to wet sidewalks, and the usual hum of early commuters filled the air. But by mid-morning, the tranquility was shattered when neighbors noticed that Amanda had not left her house for work or errands. Her mailbox was overflowing, and her car remained in the driveway. Concerned, a neighbor called the police, fearing something had gone terribly wrong. When officers arrived, the front door was locked, but a spare key hidden under a flower pot allowed them entry. Inside, the scene was jarring. Amanda lay at the bottom of her staircase, her body twisted in a way that suggested a sudden fall. At first glance, it seemed like a tragic accident. A woman who had always been careful and mindful had simply slipped. Yet, as the officers examined her surroundings, subtle details began to raise questions. The lighting in the home was dim despite the morning sun streaming through the windows. A coffee cup sat on the counter, untouched, as though Amanda had planned to start her day but never did. Bruises marred her arms in odd patterns, some fresh, others faded, as if they had been there for days. The staircase itself showed no signs of scuff marks or disruption that would suggest a chaotic tumble. The scene felt too controlled, too staged. Erin Moriarty, who had been following Amanda's story, took note of these anomalies immediately. For someone who spent years covering stories of sudden deaths and hidden crimes, intuition often guided her to look beyond the obvious. Something didn't sit right. As Erin began her preliminary investigation, she learned more about Amanda's life, each revelation adding layers of intrigue to the case. Amanda had been a 34-year-old graphic designer, living alone after recently ending a long-term relationship. She was well-liked in her neighborhood, often seen walking her dog, chatting with neighbors, and attending local events. There was nothing outwardly threatening in her daily routine, nothing to suggest that someone would want to harm her. Yet Erin discovered a series of strange incidents in the weeks before Amanda's death. A few neighbors mentioned seeing unfamiliar cars parked outside her home at odd hours. Amanda had also started keeping a log of minor disturbances and suspicious encounters, notes she shared only with a close friend. The more Erin delved into these details, the more Amanda's death began to feel like a puzzle with missing pieces. Initial police reports suggested that she had slipped on the stairs due to a wet floor, or perhaps a misstep in the dark. But Erin couldn't ignore the inconsistencies. The absence of skid marks, the peculiar bruising on Amanda's arms, and the odd arrangement of objects around the house. Each element pointed to a story that wasn't being told, a narrative that hid something more sinister than a simple accident. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, casting shadows across Amanda's living room, Erin realized that the quiet streets and friendly facades masked a darker reality. The mystery surrounding Amanda Leigh's death was only beginning, and every detail she uncovered hinted at a truth that might shock the entire community. Erin Moriarty's investigation into Amanda Leigh's life quickly revealed a complexity that contrasted sharply with the neighborhood's calm exterior. Beneath Amanda's cheerful demeanor, there were signs of stress and secrecy that few had noticed. Erin discovered that Amanda had recently ended a long-term relationship that had, according to friends, become increasingly controlling in its final months. While outwardly amicable, the split had left Amanda cautious and wary of those around her. Erin examined Amanda's digital footprint and found a trail of messages and emails that hinted at escalating tension. Some contained veiled threats, while others demanded repayment of debts or hinted at unresolved grievances. These messages were scattered and often subtle, but together they painted a picture of someone who had been targeted and pressured in ways that were difficult to trace. Friends and neighbors described Amanda as cautious in the weeks before her death. She had become more reserved, avoiding gatherings she once enjoyed, and taking longer routes on walks, seemingly to avoid being noticed. Erin noted that Amanda had begun locking doors even during the day, an unusual step for someone who had previously felt safe in her community. Erin pieced together that Amanda had been navigating a network of people who may have held grudges or financial expectations, and the stress of these hidden pressures may have been greater than anyone realized. Her bank records showed unusual withdrawals, some for large sums, suggesting she might have been trying to settle disputes quietly. Further investigation revealed Amanda had confided only minimally to friends about her concerns. One friend mentioned receiving a series of cryptic messages from Amanda, vague but filled with unease. Amanda had never specified who she feared or why, but the tone suggested someone close to her life was exerting control. Erin began to suspect that the person behind these messages may have been monitoring Amanda, aware of her routines, and calculating the best way to manipulate or intimidate her. Each discovery made Amanda's death appear less like an accident and more like the culmination of a series of escalating threats. Erin also examined Amanda's social life and professional environment. At work, Amanda was known as reliable and friendly, yet colleagues noted that she had recently been more withdrawn, declining invitations to social events and avoiding casual conversations. Erin theorized that the isolation Amanda experienced may have been intentional, a tactic by someone seeking to weaken her support system. By cutting off connections and keeping her anxious, Amanda may have been more vulnerable than anyone suspected. Erin collected documents, photos, and timelines, each piece highlighting the contrast between Amanda's public persona and her private unease. The combination of financial irregularities, threatening messages, and growing isolation suggested a deliberate campaign to destabilize Amanda. Erin began mapping relationships, identifying individuals with both motive and opportunity. Patterns emerged, pointing toward someone familiar with her habits, someone patient and methodical. Erin realized that Amanda's death was not a spontaneous tragedy, but likely the result of careful planning, a plan that had taken weeks or even months to unfold. The quiet, ordinary exterior of Amanda's life masked a deeper, more dangerous reality, and Erin knew that uncovering these hidden layers would be crucial to understanding what truly happened that night. Erin Moriarty's investigation took a crucial turn when she discovered the first eyewitness who had seen something unusual the night Amanda Leigh died. Initially hesitant, the neighbor finally admitted to noticing a stranger leaving Amanda's house around midnight. The figure was tall, wearing dark clothing, and moved with a deliberate, almost mechanical precision. Erin immediately understood that this single observation could shift the case from an unexplained accident to a possible homicide. She requested surveillance footage from nearby homes and businesses, hoping to corroborate the neighbor's account. The grainy recordings confirmed a dark sedan parked in front of Amanda's house at odd hours, far later than anyone expected for a typical visitor. Erin analyzed the footage frame by frame, noting patterns in the vehicle's arrival and departure, and cross-referenced them with the timeline of Amanda's last known activities. As Erin delved deeper, she uncovered more anomalies. The sedan was registered to a shell company, making it difficult to trace the owner directly. Erin began examining the surrounding neighborhood for other potential witnesses, learning that several residents had noticed unusual comings and goings over the previous weeks, but none had thought to report them. The accumulation of seemingly minor details painted a troubling picture. Amanda had been watched, her movements tracked, and the intrusions were escalating. Erin realized the stranger might have been familiar with Amanda's routine, someone patient enough to wait for the perfect moment to act. Erin also discovered traces of communication that had been overlooked in the initial investigation. Anonymous texts and emails suggested that Amanda was being manipulated behind the scenes. Some contained veiled threats. Others demanded repayment or hinted at past disputes that Amanda may have believed were private. Erin noted a connection between the sender's timing and the appearance of the dark sedan. suggesting that Amanda's distress was not random. Someone was orchestrating a campaign of intimidation, one that culminated in the night of her death. In her review of Amanda's personal life, Erin identified individuals with both opportunity and potential motive. Friends, colleagues, and acquaintances each provided pieces of the puzzle, revealing tensions that had been hidden beneath Amanda's composed exterior. Financial disputes, jealousy, and personal grudges emerged as possible drivers behind the threats. Erin mapped these connections carefully, recognizing that the pattern of behavior indicated a calculated plan rather than impulsive aggression. The more Erin uncovered, the clearer it became that Amanda's death was not the result of a simple accident. Each witness account, each suspicious message, and each unexplained vehicle movement pointed toward a deliberate intrusion into Amanda's life. Erin began reconstructing the timeline leading up to the tragedy, piecing together the moments that might have seemed insignificant at the time but were critical to understanding what truly happened. The realization that someone had been silently observing Amanda, manipulating her environment, and anticipating her actions added a chilling layer to the investigation. The ordinary streets and quiet homes of the neighborhood hid a darker story, and Erin Moriarty's methodical pursuit of the truth was beginning to expose the careful planning that had turned Amanda Leigh's life into a trap from which there was no escape. Erin Moriarty's investigation intensified as new forensic evidence began to surface, casting Amanda Leigh's death in a starkly different light. What had initially seemed like a tragic accident now bore the hallmarks of something far more sinister. Toxicology reports revealed traces of a sedative in Amanda's system, a substance that could have incapacitated her and made her vulnerable to harm. The presence of this drug suggested premeditation, an effort to weaken Amanda's ability to respond or escape. Erin considered the implications. Someone had gained access to her home, administered the substance, and created the illusion of a fall. The careful orchestration of these events indicated a level of planning that went beyond simple malice. Erin reviewed the scene photographs and the accounts collected from neighbors and friends, piecing together a timeline that revealed patterns previously unnoticed. Objects in Amanda's home had been moved in ways that seemed subtle but deliberate, designed to make a fall look accidental. The coffee cup on the counter, the slightly tilted rug at the top of the stairs, and the positioning of the furniture all suggested manipulation rather than randomness. Erin's attention to these details highlighted how meticulously the perpetrator had staged the scene. The sedative, the surveillance, and the manipulation of the environment pointed toward someone with intimate knowledge of Amanda's habits and living space. Interviews with colleagues and friends began to reveal interpersonal tensions that may have contributed to the crime. Amanda had recently experienced disputes at work, minor but persistent conflicts that had left her increasingly isolated. Erin uncovered evidence that one individual in particular had both motive and opportunity, someone who had been present in Amanda's life long enough to understand her routines and vulnerabilities. This person's history revealed a pattern of controlling and manipulative behavior, and Erin began to see how these traits could escalate into something deadly when combined with opportunity. Financial records provided another layer of insight. Amanda had made unusual withdrawals in the days leading up to her death, amounts that suggested she may have been attempting to settle a dispute or pay off someone exerting pressure. Erin connected these transactions with the threatening messages Amanda had received, forming a clearer picture of the persistent stress she had been under. The interplay of financial coercion, psychological intimidation, and physical manipulation created a scenario that made Amanda's death increasingly difficult to explain as accidental. As Erin synthesized the evidence, she identified patterns that revealed the calculated nature of the act. The sedative, the precise timing, the manipulation of the environment, and the potential suspect's access and knowledge of Amanda's life all indicated careful orchestration. Every piece of the puzzle fit into a broader picture of premeditated harm. Erin's reporting brought renewed scrutiny from law enforcement, prompting them to re-examine the case with a more critical eye. It became increasingly clear that Amanda Leigh's death was not a random misfortune, but the result of a deliberate and meticulously executed plan, a plan that had exploited her trust and her routines to achieve a chilling end. The ordinary appearance of her home, once considered a safe sanctuary, had been transformed into the setting of a carefully staged crime, and the truth of what had transpired was beginning to emerge with unsettling clarity. Erin Moriarty's investigation reached its climax as the pieces of Amanda Leigh's story finally came together. The combination of witness accounts, forensic evidence, and a meticulous review of her life left little doubt that her death had been deliberately orchestrated. The sedative found in her system, the subtle manipulation of her surroundings, and the surveillance that had tracked her movements all pointed toward a calculated act of violence. Erin traced these elements back to a single individual, someone who had intimate knowledge of Amanda's habits and access to her daily life. The realization was chilling. This was not a random act, but a murder carefully planned to look like an accident. Erin uncovered a series of actions that revealed the perpetrator's methodical approach. Threatening messages, financial coercion, and attempts to isolate Amanda from friends and colleagues all fit into a broader pattern of control and intimidation. The dark sedan seen outside her home, the timing of visits, and the manipulation of objects inside the house suggested premeditation at every step. Each detail, when considered alone, might have seemed insignificant, but together they formed a portrait of someone who had engineered the circumstances of Amanda's death with disturbing precision. Erin pieced together the timeline of events, reconstructing the night in painstaking detail, showing how every move was calculated to ensure Amanda could not resist or escape. Interviews with those close to Amanda revealed the subtle pressures and hidden tensions that had gone unnoticed. Friends recalled small but telling moments: the anxious glances at unfamiliar vehicles, the hesitation to answer certain calls, and the sudden withdrawals from social gatherings. Erin connected these behaviors to the ongoing threats Amanda had received, realizing they were symptoms of a larger, sinister plan. It became clear that the perpetrator had been monitoring her for weeks, studying her habits, and exploiting her vulnerabilities. Every interaction and every decision Amanda made in the final days of her life had been influenced by someone intent on control and destruction. Financial records provided further evidence of manipulation. Large, unexplained withdrawals and payments suggested that Amanda had been pressured to comply with demands she could not openly resist. Erin discovered that these transactions aligned with the threatening communications, revealing the systematic nature of the abuse. The perpetrator had not only targeted Amanda physically, but had also sought to destabilize her emotionally and financially, creating a sense of inevitability that made the fatal night possible. As Erin Moriarty brought all these elements together, the narrative became undeniable. Amanda Leigh's death was not an accident. It was murder, executed with careful planning and intimate knowledge of the victim's life. The quiet streets, friendly neighbors, and ordinary facade of her home masked a deeper, more dangerous reality. Erin's investigation exposed the layers of deception and control that had led to her death, revealing a chilling story of manipulation and calculated violence. The truth left the community shaken, forcing them to confront the unsettling reality that even ordinary lives can be ensnared in extraordinary danger. Amanda's story became a haunting reminder of how appearances can deceive and how methodical malice can hide in plain sight.